FBI Director Kash Patel says he is suing The Atlantic for defamation. The magazine published a report accusing him of excessive drinking and regular absences. Patel denies the accusations. In an interview with Fox News, he called the reporting fake news.
If I'm not doing my job, if I'm not working, then how is it that the FBI delivered the safest America under President Trump's leadership in the history of our country? We are not going to take this laying down. You want to attack my character? Come at me. Bring it on. I'll see you.
Now, The Atlantic released this statement moments ago. It reads, "We stand by our reporting on Kash Patel, and we vigorously defend The Atlantic and our journalists against this meritless lawsuit."
Hey everyone, Adam is here. So what just happening right now, Kash Patel, Trump's most trusted enforcer, the man whose entire value was built on silence and proximity to power, has already confessed. Not through a leak or a press conference, through the most legally destructive mechanism in the American justice system. The trap was set, the jaws snapped shut, and the road from the West Wing to a federal penitentiary is now paved with his own words.
Director, the first time you saw Donald Trump's name was in the Epstein files. Did you close the files or keep reading?
I have reviewed not the entirety of the files, so
you haven't reviewed all of the Epstein files?
Personally, no.
You're the director of the FBI. This is the largest sex trafficking case the FBI has ever been a part of. Buck stops at the top, and your testimony today is you have not reviewed all the files.
What I've been doing is been busy providing the safest country this country has seen in modern U.S. history in historic speed, because the men and women of the FBI are given the resources to reduce the homicide rate, to reduce the drug trafficking rate, to reduce the amount of children that are being trafficked, and the number of
it sounds like those children being trafficked would appreciate the director reviewing the files. You said you don't know the number of times Trump's name appears in the files, so it could at least be 1,000 times. Is that right?
The number is a total misleading factor. We have not released anyone's name in the Epstein files that has not been credible.
The interrogation that matters didn't happen in a cable news studio where Patel could spin and deflect. It happened in the sterile, soundproofed, wood-paneled box of a federal grand jury chamber. Special Counsel Jack Smith, the man tasked with excavating the truth about the Mar-a-Lago classified documents catastrophe, didn't ask for a friendly chat. He issued a subpoena. He put Kash Patel, the loudest mouthpiece of the declassification fairy tale, under oath. No cameras, no handlers, no escape. Just the cold, clean machinery of a prosecutor and a witness who has been legally cornered.
Brett, this has been breaking in the last hour or so. We are told that, according to Kash Patel, the FBI director, the prior bureau leadership obtained his phone records and phone records to current White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles back in 2022 and 2023. This eventually led into the Jack Smith special counsel investigation into then former President Donald Trump. We're told that some of these records are just toll records, which don't have specific information other than times and dates. They don't have the actual content of calls, but two sources in the FBI say that Susie Wiles' attorney agreed to be recorded by FBI agents in 2023. She did not agree. We've reached out to her for comment. FBI Director Patel, in a statement to Fox News, calls this outrageous and deeply disturbing. And I will add, Brett, that we are told at least 10 Bureau employees have been fired just today over this incident, with more potentially to come.
And when that prosecutor asked the pivotal question, the one that would slice through all the public relations fog, Patel's response was not a denial. It was not a clarification. It was a 5-word legal grenade that detonates everything about his public persona. He said, "I invoke my Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination."
And new development in the search at Mar-a-Lago. The Justice Department has granted former Trump advisor Kash Patel immunity from prosecution in exchange for his testimony to the grand jury investigation, the handling of federal documents. The Justice Department subpoenaed Patel to the grand jury in October. At the time, he asserted his Fifth Amendment right from self-incrimination. Patel has not been charged with any crime.
Pause there and let the implications sink into your bones. A man who had paraded across every friendly media platform, who had co-authored the narrative that Donald Trump possessed some magical mental superpower to declassify nuclear secrets with a thought, who had mocked the investigation as a witch hunt, who had positioned himself as the ultimate transparent defender of the administration, that same man, when placed in a room where lying is a felony, looked the United States government in the eye and formally declared that answering truthfully would provide evidence of his own criminal activity. He didn't just stay quiet, he made a legal declaration that his honesty would hang him. In that instant, the mask of the loyal soldier evaporated, and the face of a co-conspirator hiding from his own reflection was revealed. He handed Jack Smith a weapon more potent than any FBI raid could ever produce: the irrefutable certainty that Kash Patel has something devastating to conceal. Now, prosecutors do not distribute immunity agreements like party favors. They wield them as precision instruments of demolition. Faced with Patel's stonewalling, with his legally declared fear of self-incrimination, the special counsel's team executed a maneuver of surgical brilliance. They granted him use immunity. Understand what this is, because it's not a get-out-of-jail-free card. It's a legal straitjacket disguised as a shield. Use immunity means that the specific words you utter in that grand jury room cannot be used directly against you in a subsequent prosecution, but it strips you completely of your right to remain silent. The Fifth Amendment is gone. The door is locked behind you. The message from the prosecution is brutally clear. You will no longer hide behind the Constitution. You will now speak. And if a single syllable of what you say is false, we will bury you under a perjury charge that will make your head spin. Immunity does not make you safe. It makes you a compelled narrator of your own potential crimes. For a man whose entire identity is forged from the myth of being the unbreakable loyalist, this was a psychological execution. They didn't physically force him into a confession booth. They legally conscripted him into one. The grand jury chamber was transformed from a place of potential risk into a federally mandated confessional. He had to answer. He had no choice. And the substance of what he revealed in that sealed room is now the most radioactive secret in Washington, locked inside Volume 2 of Special Counsel Smith's final report, a document currently hidden from public view but whose gravitational pull is warping the entire political landscape. We don't need the verbatim transcript to grasp the cataclysmic nature of what he said. We can deduce it with horrifying precision from the chain of reactions it has set off in the corridors of supreme authority. The most deafening of these reactions burst forth from the United States Senate itself. Senators Adam Schiff and Dick Durbin, senior power brokers on the Judiciary Committee, fired off a formal, urgent demand to the Attorney General. Their request was not gentle. It was not exploratory. It was a targeted missile strike on Patel's credibility. They demanded the immediate release of the portion of the Smith report dealing specifically with Kash Patel. Read their justification, because it's a damning indictment wrapped in bureaucratic phrasing. They stated that the report contained key information and evidence pertaining to the nomination of Kash Patel as director of the FBI, and was essential for assessing his truthfulness, trustworthiness, and regard for the protection of classified information. Let me translate that procedural language into blunt reality. Truthfulness means they have reason to believe he lied. Trustworthiness means they suspect a fundamental betrayal of his oath. Regard for the protection of classified information means they possess evidence suggesting he negligently or criminally mishandled state secrets. The Senate of the United States is not asking for a character reference. It is leveling the accusation with the full gravity of its constitutional oversight power that the man currently running the FBI may be a perjurer and a national security hazard, and that the proof is sealed in his own immunized testimony. They are publicly signaling that the story Patel whispered to the grand jury under the threat of prison is a universe apart from the story he and Trump have been shouting to the American people. This single action, the Senate's formal pursuit of the sealed testimony, operates like a key turning in a massive lock, swinging open the gates to reveal the full panorama of Patel's legal vulnerability. His peril is not a single leak. It is a sprawling, interconnected empire of potential criminal exposure, and each branch is now bearing poisoned fruit. Consider the foundational lie, the declassification deception. In the court of public opinion, Patel has been the principal engineer of the absurd claim that Trump possessed a standing order that automatically declassified any document he removed from the Oval Office. It was the emotional core of their defense, a magic spell that supposedly transformed boxes of top-secret intelligence into presidential scrapbooks. But what if, under the crushing pressure of use immunity, facing a prosecutor who already possessed the actual documents and the testimony of career officials, Patel conceded reality? What if he admitted that no such standing order ever existed, that the established procedures were deliberately bypassed, and that the documents at Mar-a-Lago were knowingly treated as what they visibly were? Highly classified materials stored in a bathroom and a ballroom stage. If that transcript contains those admissions, Patel has not merely shredded Trump's primary legal alibi, he has incriminated himself in a conspiracy to defraud the United States and obstruct a federal investigation. Every television appearance he made, every tweet he posted, every public statement spinning the declassification fantasy now retroactively transforms into evidence for a false statements charge. Next, trace the poison back to the Epstein files obstruction. As FBI director, Patel seized control of the most politically combustible archive in living memory. His public testimony before Congress, where he minimized connections, justified redactions, and portrayed himself as a maximalist for transparency, now sits in the radioactive shadow of his immunized grand jury appearance. If, under that secret oath, he admitted to knowledge of or personal involvement in a coordinated strategy to slow-walk, obscure, or selectively drip-feed information to shield powerful individuals, then his congressional statements undergo a chemical change. They transmute from political spin into the material of perjury. His administrative decisions as director, the personnel changes, the delayed releases, the frustrating non-responses, cease to be managerial choices and become evidence of an active criminal obstruction of justice. Then examine the FBI purge abuses. Patel's stormtrooper-style takeover of the Bureau began with a Stalin-esque cleansing of career officials, a campaign of political vengeance marketed as bureaucratic reform. The official narrative was performance improvement. Now, through sworn depositions and declarations from terminated agents, filed in active federal civil lawsuits, a devastating counter-narrative is crystallizing in the legal record. These aren't anonymous complaints. These are sworn allegations, the most potent form of evidence in civil law, alleging that Patel privately conceded that many of his personnel actions were direct violations of federal employment statutes and internal FBI regulations. The legal documents contain claims that he acknowledged these firings were probably illegal and would inevitably trigger lawsuits, but that he proceeded regardless because the White House or the president himself demanded it. These are not partisan talking points. They are sworn allegations of admissions against interest, sitting in federal court dockets, and they paint a portrait of a man who looked at the law, recognized he was about to shatter it, and did it anyway on command. Finally, trace the thread to the January 6th pardon machine. Patel's deep involvement in vetting and likely championing the sweeping pardons for January 6th insurgents, including violent offenders who assaulted police officers, positions him at the molten core of a potential conspiracy to reward criminality for political fealty. Any immunized testimony that touches on conversations with Trump about employing the pardon power as a tool to nullify legal consequences for those who attacked the Capitol to overturn an election would be grounds for a criminal investigation into conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding. The pardon power is absolute on paper, but conspiring to use it as a corrupt bargain to shield an attack on democracy is a crime. Kash Patel is not a bystander to the Trump scandals. He is the central switching station, the humming electrical hub where every current of alleged corruption converges and intertwines. And at every single connection node, the documents, the Epstein cover-up, the personnel massacres, the insurrectionist pardons, there now exists a formalized, legalized record of his potential guilt. compelled immunized testimony sitting in a sealed report, sworn allegations of his own admissions lodged in federal civil suits, and official Senate suspicions broadcast in formal letters. The machinery of accountability is no longer idling. It is roaring. The judiciary is methodically performing its constitutional function, paving the road from the executive mansion to the prison cell. Every time a judge like Tanya Chutkan issues a ruling on a motion pertaining to January 6th or the limits of presidential immunity, she is affirming the foundational principle that the legal process applies to every single person, no matter their proximity to power. The very act of a federal court recognizing the legitimacy of Jack Smith's investigation, and by extension accepting the compelled immunized testimony of a figure like Patel, is a monumental step. It sanctifies the evidence. It normalizes the radical concept that even the director of the FBI is not above being dragged into a grand jury to account for his own behavior. The courts, through their rulings and their custodianship of this explosive evidence, are systematically clearing the underbrush of legal technicalities and political defenses, creating a vast, unobstructed field where the factual architecture of the case is visible to everyone. This meticulous judicial groundwork sets the stage for the ultimate prosecutorial tactic, the squeeze. Kash Patel is the perfect anatomical subject for this pressure strategy. He is stratospherically high-ranking enough to know the darkest details of every operation, every motive, every whispered command. Yet he is not constitutionally shielded like a sitting president. He is vulnerable. Federal prosecutors can now walk into a room and lay before him a sprawling multi-count indictment menu, a smorgasbord of charges harvested directly from his own immunized admissions, the civil suit allegations from his former colleagues, and the gaping contradictions in his public testimony. Perjury, obstruction of justice, conspiracy to defraud the United States, abuse of power, flagrant violations of federal personnel laws. The charging document could be enormous, a career-ending, life-destroying edifice of legal doom. Then they will present the binary choice, and it will not be gentle. They will say, you can fight this. You, a former FBI director, can find yourself in the defendant's chair of a federal courtroom with your own words, spoken under immunity, and your colleagues' sworn statements, used as the primary weapons against you. The statistical likelihood is not a slap on the wrist. It is a decade or more inside a federal penitentiary. The sound of the cell door closing will be the last earthly noise you register as a free man for a very long time. And here the room will grow deathly silent. You can cooperate. You can provide exhaustive, detailed, and independently corroborated testimony about every single instruction you ever received from Donald Trump. You can illuminate for us the documents, explain the intent behind the Epstein file manipulation, detail the logic of the purges, and unpack the mechanics of the pardon strategy. You can become the star witness who translates the chaotic public pronouncements into the clear, criminal conspiracy that underpinned them. In exchange for this complete and total account, we will entertain a plea to substantially lesser charges and, crucially, we will advocate for extreme leniency at your sentencing hearing. For Patel, a man whose public brand is synonymous with fierce, untouchable loyalty, this moment represents an existential rupture of the soul. The edifice of his identity is built on being the enforcer, the silent warrior, the one who never breaks. But the primal, screaming instinct for self-preservation is a force that political allegiance rarely survives. When the abstract concept of loyalty is weighed against the concrete reality of spending your remaining healthy years in a maximum security cell, while the man you protected continues to enjoy the gilded cage of his private clubs and rallies, the calculus of blind devotion shatters into a million pieces. The romanticized narrative of the patriot soldier dissolves the instant the choice becomes you in an orange jumpsuit while he delivers a fiery speech about your betrayal and weakness to a cheering crowd. If Patel chooses survival and the entire sordid history of prosecuted presidential insiders from John Dean to Michael Cohen to Mark Meadows suggests that when the abyss stares back, they almost always do, the impact will be thermonuclear on the presidency he was installed to protect. His corroborated testimony would provide the single missing element that many critics have argued the special counsel's mountain of evidence has thus far lacked for the absolute highest level: a direct eyewitness account of Donald Trump's knowing criminal intent. Patel could be the voice that tells a jury, yes, the president fully understood the documents were classified. He instructed me to propagate the declassification myth publicly as a cover story. He personally directed the slow walking of the Epstein responses to protect certain associates. He ordered me to fire those specific career employees as an act of political vengeance, knowing perfectly well it was a violation of the law. This transforms a powerful yet circumstantial case into an airtight, unassailable, eyewitness-driven prosecutorial nightmare. The entire defensive wall of plausible deniability crumbles when the man who stood directly behind the throne testifies that the emperor meticulously planned every criminal detail. The Senate Democrats' dogged pursuit of the sealed Smith report is the opening political thunderclap in this final unfolding battle. They are not merely seeking to embarrass an FBI director before the cameras. They are building the public foundational record for what may become the ultimate constitutional confrontation of this era. They are methodically gathering the bricks, the immunized secrets, the sworn allegations from the purges, the official congressional demands. These bricks will serve a dual purpose. They will either construct the ironclad scaffolding for an impeachment proceeding in the House, or they will form the public mandate for a sweeping post-presidency indictment that cannot be waved away as partisan theater. These senators understand with crystalline clarity that Patel's forced admissions are the Rosetta Stone of the entire scandal architecture. They are the decoder ring that can finally translate Trump's chaotic, rambling public statements and reveal them for what they actually were: a deliberate, calculated smokescreen designed to obscure a systematic criminal enterprise. Kash Patel constructed his entire fortress of power on a bedrock of secrets and an unbreakable code of silence. The American justice system, moving with the slow, grinding, but unstoppable force of a tectonic plate, has now completely sapped that foundation, turning the ground beneath him into liquid. The original use immunity order was the initial explosive charge, planted deep in the structural core of his silence. The sealed testimony that followed was the contained, high-yield detonation that shattered the internal supports. The Senate's formal pursuit is the precision drill boring down to release the unbearable pressure to the surface, and the mounting civil lawsuits from the agents he purged are the jagged cracks spreading across every remaining wall of his fortress, each one revealing more of the crumbling, hollow interior where his defense once stood. The path to a federal prison cell is no longer a speculative outcome debated on panel shows. It is a tangible, procedural reality being actively constructed by judges who enforce the law without passion or prejudice, by senators who execute their constitutional oversight duties, and by career prosecutors who follow the evidentiary leads without fear, even when those leads snake directly into the director's office of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Patel did not merely witness dark deeds from a safe distance. According to the legal topography now taking definitive shape in multiple jurisdictions, he actively participated in them, orchestrated parts of them, and then, under the supreme, unbearable pressure of the legal system, he admitted to the core elements of those crimes in a sealed room. The court has not only cleared a path to accountability, it has provided the precise map, fueled the vehicle, unlocked the gates, and turned on the headlights. All that remains now is the final, inevitable journey, and that journey ends at the iron gates of a federal penitentiary,